Now for our speaker, John Martin.
Oh, thank you.
The podium is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having myself and my lovely wife join me here this morning. It was nice to drive over. We're actually from the Beach Lake area, so we're kind of we frequent this area, the Callicoon, and the general vicinity. So it's always nice to come over here by the river. So I'm here on behalf of Habitat for Humanity, Wayne County. We're a international organization, as many know, but we're a very locally focused organization, and I'll get more to that in a second. But our mission generally, from our page, is seeking to put God's love into action. Habitat for Humanity brings people together to build homes, communities, and hope. That's our general mission statement. And our vision in reality is a world where everyone has a decent place to live, because we feel that that's one of the tenets of, of sustenance in life is to have some place to call home and some place to seek refuge after going through life's tribulations. So that's certainly how I look at it. But a little brief history about Habitat. The idea that became Habitat for Humanity first grew in Americus, Georgia. It was founded by farmer and biblical scholar Clarence Jordan. On the farm in Clarence, Georgia, Jordan and Habitat's eventual founders, Millard and Linda Fuller, developed the concept of partnership housing, which is a concept that Habitat for Humanity still embodies today. The concept centers are on those in need of adequate shelter, working side by side with volunteers to build decent, affordable houses. The houses would be built at no profit, and new homeowners' house payments would be combined with no interest loans, which we in Habitat for Humanity of Wayne County still operate that way. Other chapters do not, but we do still operate because we do hold our old loans. So we do extend zero interest loans to our homeowners, which, as everyone in today's day knows, that is a big deal. The bigger number, of course, on your mortgage payment is always the interest to the bank. So, but anyway, back then they created the Fund for Humanity, which their thought was, we would take this money that we would have from the community, this fundraising money, we would bring volunteers into the community. They would then, talking about a circular economy, it's much to that effect. They would take the funds from that house, take the volunteers, and then they would then build the next house for the next, then find a partner family in need. And eventually you have enough partner families, which I'll talk more about the partner families. I think they're the most undervalued and understated part of the whole thing we do. But these partner families, though, are able to help and then build the next home and help the next family in need. And I've certainly found that in my experience in Habitat is how helpful, yes, the community is to those in need, but also those that are in need, how helpful they really are, and how I think sometimes they get looked at as, they're in a helpless situation, but, they just need what I'll call a hand up to help them out. So, and I'm sure as many of you are familiar, our late President Jimmy Carter and his wife Rosalind were huge contributors to Habitat for Humanity. It was formed in the mid-1970s, what we know it today, and that was certainly a time when Mr. Carter was around and he was involved, and then even through his retirement, he continued to work for Habitat pretty much up until the day he passed. He was involved in Habitat for Humanity. But in regards to us locally, we've had a bunch of great events as a chapter this year. We always do our annual 5K run, which happens in the fall. So if we do a calendar year, I guess we do that in the fall. And then we just had our large fundraising dinner that we have every year, our fundraising event in Honesdale. It's called our Hearts and Hammers dinner, where we have auction items and things of that nature. And again, that's the community at large really contributing, bringing these auction items in, donating their time, obviously donating money as well. But and they show up as well from the community. So it really was a wonderful event. Of course, we're always looking for more volunteers in every aspect of what we do as an organization. We have the building committee, and I think that's what a lot of people think of Habitat as, but we also have the other factions of it. We have a public relations committee, we have a fundraising committee, we have a social committee in regards to doing our social media and things of that nature. So if you have any interest in contributing to any organization like that in any way, it's more than just swinging hammers. Although if you want to do that, we can provide a hammer. All right, so looking ahead to what we want to do in 2025, we own a property in Honesdale on 13th Street in Honesdale. 13th and East Street. We are in the process now of meeting with Kylie Associates, who's out of Lake Ariel, Hamlin area, and they're going to donate the design aspect of this because we need to go to the borough and get their blessing to build whatever we want to build. So at this point, we're envisioning a 3-bedroom home, a 3-bedroom ranch home, and we were talking about it briefly when I came in, but part of what I think the next frontier of Habitat's going to be is building homes that are accessible to not just those of us who are able-bodied, but those of us who have disabilities, who have physical disabilities. And we mentioned it before with aging as well. I mean, you could have a partner family now in great health, but 20 years from now, who knows what the world could bring. And you'd really like to have a home where it's wheelchair accessible. We have ramps. But in any event, the house we're building now is envisioned to be a 3-bedroom home. It's envisioned to be a ranch style home. It'll be on a pad, hopefully in Honesdale. So we won't have a basement, but it'll be a pad because there was an old commercial building there. So we'll put it on a pad. It'll be 3 bedrooms. That'll allow us to serve, I think, the most people in our community. I think that's our biggest segment of individuals because what we found certainly in the last 10 years for sure is that a family unit is not exactly what it traditionally was. As we're all aware, I mean, blended families are a occurrence that happen day in and day out. So I think that part of what we need to accommodate is more children in homes, not necessarily biological siblings, but siblings nonetheless. And I think 3 bedrooms allows us to do that. That's one of the largest footprints that Habitat will allow us to build based on our funding and granting. So, which I think is that great. But in any event, I want to explain a little bit about what Habitat is and how it works. As I said, Habitat, in my opinion, is a hand up. It's not a hand out. And what I mean by that is I think Habitat, a lot of individuals have the conception that Habitat, we build housing and then we just give it away. That's not at all what we do. We do help families out by allowing them a 0-interest mortgage. We hold the mortgage in-house ourselves through the help of Homes on National Bank. They process all our mortgages at no cost to us, which is wonderful. But we hold all our mortgages, so that obviously, if we just very recently had a family that fell on some hard times with health, and we've been able to help them out the last 2 months. But with that being said, we're able to help, but in the meantime, these families will build the home. They have to reside in the home for a period of at least 1 year. Generally, it's a little longer than that, but at least a year where they make rental payments to us. So we don't immediately transfer a deed or anything. They make rental payments to us. They also have to contribute 300 hours per partner family of, we'll call it sweat equity, but volunteer work, things of that nature. And that goes towards the mission of Habitat of being that circular, helping the next family in need type thing. So with that in mind, they have to do that. They do that, and then eventually, and actually next week, hopefully, we're going to transfer a house we have in White Mills to a partner family. But then eventually, they maintain ownership of it, and then we allow them a nice gift of equity when we, of course, sell them the house. And yeah, that's how they end up in it. And then throughout their ownership of the house, I've found that the partner families come back, they help. You'll see it at all of our events and everything. You'll always have the partner families there to help. So with that in mind, that's how Habitat works. That's what we're looking to do. This fall, we're looking to do some type of event, hopefully at the Wayne County Fairgrounds, some type of cornhole type event, fundraising event. So if anyone has any ideas on that type of front, feel free to let me know. But that's what we're looking for in the fall. Hopefully we'll start our East Street build within the next few months. We'll get that started. So with that, I appreciate everybody having me here this morning. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm all ears. Thank you.
I was wondering how much money, what is the yearly budget for Habitat?
Habitat International?
No.
I was going to say, how international is their instrument, but well, especially now with the new White House, actually, they've lost a lot of their federal dollars actually lately. Habitat International has, but our budget every year. I mean, we are locally funded. We have our own funds. So let's put it this way: a house. We used to like to build a house for about $100,000 to $110,000. That in this day and age is very difficult, especially in the last 5 years. That's become very difficult. So I would say our projected home build now is probably more 145, probably 180, maybe 60. Because the issue we have is you have rising home costs and the cost to build the house, but you also have these guidelines we have to follow to qualify families. So actually that gap gets bigger and bigger. So, we're actually looking into more opportunities for grant funding and such that we could get grant funding, matching grant funding. That way, when we sell the partner family the home, that money is not on the mortgage itself. That would just, it's grant money, so it'd be forgiven, I guess, in that sort. So we could build a house for $180,000, which in my opinion is still it's a nice home. And we could, sell it to a partner family for 120, 125, that we can make that payment just work. But still, I mean, it's tough. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. It's two competing things, And we do get a lot of help when it comes to, like, our excavator helps us. He's Jeff Giblin in the Holmesville area, Beach Lake Construction. He helps us. He gives us great discounts for our excavation work. Other members of the community, they'll come help frame and things like that. And they'll donate, labor, a couple guys for a day or two. I mean, but still, it's, just the cost of materials to build a house is incredible, And Derlin Brothers Lumber at Holmesville, they help us out a great deal. But, at the end of the day, it's still, cost is cost in a way. So, but anyway, I hope that kind of answers your question. But if we build a house a year, I would say that's what our budget is. Oh, and one other thing, we're largely, at this moment, we're a totally volunteer organization. There's nobody in our organization that takes a salary or anything of that kind at this time. So we're actively looking actually to bring someone in maybe part-time as administrative help, somewhat of an executive type position. But other than that, though, it's purely volunteer organization. So that's obviously how we're able to keep our overhead down as well, too.
So what does it look like? Like, how many people? Is there like a core of 10 people?
Well, our board, 10 plus my name's on it. There's 11 of us board members. There's 11 of us, and then we have our different committees. We have our social committee. I don't call it social fundraising committee. Oh, huge event comes up. I'll have a date for you guys before I leave here. Is First Bingo out at Lakewood with the Cancel Doors in May. I'll have the date and time for you guys before I leave. But that's a big event. But they do things like that, and there's half a dozen ladies on that committee. Then we have our building committee, which is made up of we have one gentleman who runs our building committee. That's a member of the board too. But then we have a pretty large volunteer network. Individuals who are retired, individuals who are even younger individuals that'll take, a couple days off and come wire a house yeah. So we do that, but yes, sir.
Can you talk a little bit about the family selection process?
Sure.
Are there any criteria that are unique to Wayne County that locally set?
Well, the criteria.
That's select county.
Well, what we did, so obviously we'll put out an advertisement, say we're looking for partner family, and we'll receive applications. And as part of the application process, part of the family selection is, yes, do you meet the criteria, the numbers? Do you, economically, do you meet the numbers? Do you have the right amount of children? Do you have, based on your income, are you close enough to where we feel, because I just learned this a couple months ago, because we had to get a mortgage license now, the federal government's requiring us to do that, is we can't make this loan to you if we don't actually know that you're qualified to have it. So that's actually become a constraint on our qualifications in the last few months as well. And looking at partner families, there's a family that we may have said, yeah, they can do it, it might have to work a little extra, but they'll do it. We struggle to be able to find that family anymore, and we're not allowed to make them. So, but in essence, the partner families, they'll apply. We'll look at what criteria they have, such as children, household income. We'll look at age, things like that, because our mortgages will hold them, I believe, for traditionally 20 to 25 years. And, if we have a partner family that the oldest is 55, what's their physical health like? Because, what we don't like to have happen is a situation, much like I explained before, where we had a home come back to us because we had to actually basically say we're going to foreclose because, which it's not a situation we like to find ourselves in, but so that's one of the criteria we look at. And then I was talking about this before, but with disabilities, what we want to do now is because there is such great funding through the Human Resources Foundation, Human Resources Center, which is out in, Beach Lake out that way. And actually the foundation has their main office in Holmesdale, but there's so much funding through them to do the handicap accessible and things like that. Our partner family, I believe, would have to then fall into that parameter that they would have to be in need of that in order to trigger that funding. So just things we consider and think about in that. So, but there is a selection committee that brings us partner families, here's their criteria, and then as a board, we then make that decision of who, who do we like to have in there. So we do turn people away, which is, but that's generally how we go about the process.
About how many applicants do you get a year? You're doing one house a year.
Well, generally what we do is we'll build the house and say we have the opportunity. I would say we do somewhat of a standing list, let's put it that way, but our biggest applications come when we say we're looking for partner families for this home. And I would say, as of now, I think our last board meeting, we may have had 4 or 5 partner families interested in this new home build, and that will go up, of course, because as soon as the home starts being built, we'll have signs there, and then people, yeah, it's a pretty tough process. It's a selective process. But now I did want to mention one other thing though that I didn't mention before is, yes, we build new homes. We obviously do that. We rejuvenate homes. We'll take a home back. We'll remodel it. We do that. The other things we do though, we'll do projects such as a family. Now, all these individuals have to qualify with income and everything, but we'll have a family who calls and says, hey, I need a new porch because my porch has fallen, whatever. We'll income qualify them. And sometimes what we'll do with individuals that may exceed what our housing guidelines would be, but fall below a certain threshold, we may be able to do an arrangement with them where they qualify, where they provide materials and we just provide the labor, things like that. So we do a little bit of hodgepodge of that. We actually do quite a few projects like that throughout the year as well, which that goes towards good standing and habitat. But so we don't just do new houses, but.
Do you renovate houses? That's right.
Pardon?
That's what I'm asking.
Well, yes, but the most recent renovation remodel, actually Habitat technically calls it a recycle, because it doesn't, for Habitat's purposes, it doesn't count as a new home because it's a home that's already in existence. That's a whole thing, but anyway, that's a whole thing.
But are houses donated by the property?
That does happen. We'll get people that'll donate houses, but the issue we face with that, one is code. Code's a big, that's a start, is code, and to make these houses code compliant. 2, they have to fit the square footage requirements and room requirements of Habitat International's footprints, which it's a small home. I mean, we're not talking about a huge home. I think our parameters on a 3-bedroom were 1,200 or 1,500 square feet. So we're not talking about a huge house. But anyway, in stating that, and I will say that we just came back into possession maybe 2 years ago at this point of a home that we had already built, new home, family was in it, bad things happened. Long story short, we had to take the home all the way back to the studs. We had to gut it and do a whole new thing.
Oh my God.
The cost of that. Sometimes you're better off building a new house, honestly. Like generally, you really are, and then you have a new house, you have new construction. I mean, this house was all new except for the interior was pretty much destroyed. But in any event though, but no, we don't. Yes, people donate house like they'd like to, and we'll have someone go out and look. But for whatever reason, whether it be the building criteria or whether it just be cost, I mean, sometimes it's. Because we have to make the house compliant, we have to be able to get a mortgage, and like I said, based on where we are in our mortgage licensing, we have to be sure that the collateral we have, i.e. the home, is satisfactory for the mortgage loan. Because if it's not, and we go after a borrower and say, you now owe us that money, yourself, well, that might cause issues. No, but anyway, that's that part. That's how we do that. But yes.
I know that Habitat for Humanity is defined in its bylaws as a Christian ministry. Is there a lot of participation from many of the congregations?
Well, actually,
beyond Christianity, but in general in Wayne County?
I would say it's based in Christianity. I would say. I mean, but we have, for instance, 3 of the churches in Honesdale. They provide all our lunches to our volunteers every day that our work crews are working.
Wow.
We used to have office space at a church in Honesdale. They used to provide us office space, but that's since changed where my daughter went to preschool. So they booted us out of there. But But anyway, yeah, no, they're very supportive. The churches, our local, at least our three big churches in Honesdale are very supportive of us and what we do. In regards to involvement, like I said, they prepare all our lunches. And I'll say that because I'll contrast this with, I had a meeting a couple weeks ago with a different chapter of Habitat for Humanity out more towards, well, it's Back Mountain Habitat, but more like Luzerne County that way. Or I guess that way. We were talking to them and they, like they buy lunch for their volunteers every day. They have all these they have a lot of expenses that we don't have. So having dinner with them, they were telling us we pay for this, we pay for that, we pay for this. And we're sitting there and like, we don't pay for any of these things. Me and Mike, my wife Carlson, we joke, we say we pay for nothing. Well, we kind of do because so many things in our community are gifted to us. And I think that's a really cool thing about Wayne County Habitat as opposed to certainly their chapter or other chapters, Pike County. I mean, I've met them. Definitely different. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. You've been raising your hand.
That's okay. A few things, a couple of years ago, or maybe even more, I was trying to come up with an idea for fundraising for all the charities that we had been giving to for all the years. And I came up with an idea to like, maybe partner with the high school. First of all, to use some of their shop, if they have shop any longer, I don't know, and use some of their kids, but actually to introduce the idea of the school being a part of the community. I had thought about the idea because they should have at least a music department and a drama department and a shop department of having either kids actually help and volunteer on the job site. And also as a fundraiser idea to have a talent show that could be run by any of the musical departments, because I thought that way everybody in the community would probably have somebody that would be in the talent show and then they would fill the auditorium and charge money and raise funds. So if you would partner with a high school, I'm just wondering if that ever came up in your thinking about where money could come from.
That has, in some respect, we actually brought that up about the event that we're hoping to have at the fair. We brought up something like that. It's definitely something I think we would try at a bigger event, maybe making a smaller portion of it, gauge interest, and then at that point go from there. But I do think that would be an excellent idea, certainly to get the community involved. And in regards to the shops, we do like to have, we've reached out to them. I know Honesdale High School, Mr. Rickard, he's a teacher up there. He runs one of the wood shops up there. Yes, they can help to an extent, but one of the issues we face as Habitat is we do have age requirements. So when we have high school kids, you run into that issue. So it's one thing if they can do things at the school, because that's not an issue. But if they have to come to the job site, things like that for liability purposes can become an issue. But we do have other organizations that donate help and things like that. And we've certainly partnered with the school in some aspects. But yeah, that's definitely a realm of fundraising I think we could look into for sure.
Also, I just recently heard something that there's an awful lot of off-site building in new construction. I mean, almost the entire house can be built off-site. I'm just wondering if that is in any way something you considered.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Some of it done in the schools, whatever part of that off-site could be done. I'm just wondering if that's possible.
Well, I didn't think of it that far, but one thing I know we've talked about doing is much more sustainable housing. There's a lot of federal money out there for sustainable housing. So part of that would be a passive house is what we've called it. I know we've looked at the designs for that, and a large part of that would be just like that. It would be brought in and then set much more like a modular construction than a stick-built house for sure. But yeah, we've certainly looked into that. We actually looked at that at the project we're doing now, but based on our time constraints and wanting to get a house completed, I don't know that will be this project, but we have looked into that certainly. And I think that's definitely a possibility. And that would of course make houses, they would go up a lot faster in that regard. We could do it that way for sure.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Question? Do you ever do like multi-unit houses? Like if you have a bigger piece of property that you can,
Yes, to answer your question, not yet, but yes, we'd like to do that. And we actually wanted to do that. And Kylie's going to draw it up to see if we could put a two-family unit on our property on East Street. The issue, and we talked about this a month or so ago, the issue though, that we have is that our business is in that of doing the mortgages. So it would be, we don't want to set ourselves up where we're set up to that we would have a renter type situation. And not that multifamily would do that necessarily. I mean, duplexes happen all the time, but it can get more complicated. You know, if you have a duplex and you say that my deed is this half of the duplex, but I own in common, the common area with these neighbors, you're both habitat families to start. 5 years in, once you get your mortgage, there's nothing preventing you from selling that house, you know, and then the person it's something we'd like to consider, but at the same time, I think that our purpose might be best served sticking to single family. There is a lot, and also in Wayne County anyway, there is talks of new affordable housing being built in Wayne County. Certainly in Homestead, more affordable housing in Homestead. So I think that need is better served by them, you know, by whoever those developers are. I think they may be better suited for that. As much as I'd like to help out more families, I think that just might be they're better suited for.
you know, you're a little more complicated than you want.
Yeah, and they can do it on a scale a little bit. They can scale it a little bit. Correct. Correct.
How about rural areas? Do you go out of the city, out of the town?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Our biggest, I'll call it our development, it's called Volunteer Way, is actually out in Waymark. It's not in town. It's our own little cul-de-sac, little loop down there. We have, how many houses down there? 7 or 8 houses down there now. So yeah, we do, yeah, mostly rural built actually. And what I've been involved in, trying to think, we built a house in White Mills, which I wouldn't call, it's on Elizabeth Street. I wouldn't necessarily call it a rural build, but, then East Street's obviously in town, but no, I'd say, yeah, Volunteer Way out that way. That's definitely more rural than it is urban. For
Is
sure.
that easier to do it in a rural area as opposed to town, or, you know, depending on the?
Totally depends what township you're in and what municipality you're in. And that's, I can tell you, I mean, once any township or borough okays what you're going to do, so long as I don't have issues, so long as you stay within those parameters, you really don't have any issues. So that's the best I mean, the borough, I mean, obviously the issue with building in town, and a town like Honesdale in particular, is Honesdale is, you know, it's quite a bit older than any of us. So all the lots in Honesdale are actually substandard for what their actual building code requires. What that really means in layman's terms is anything you want to do in the borough, you got to get the borough's approval to do it, no matter what it is. So whether you want to build a 2-bedroom, whatever it is, you have to borough approval. So, because you literally couldn't build something, like our lot that we have now is literally a non-conforming lot. We couldn't put a shed on it unless we got borough approval, and you can put, you know, anything, because they have to weigh the setback requirements and all that stuff.
And how long does that approval process take here?
With the borough? Depend. So I'm in my spare time, I'm a lawyer too, so I do some of that work, and
Yeah.
totally depends. I mean, what it really depends on is how does the community feel about it? And that's something we gauged when we bought this property prior to buying it, is talking to some of the neighbors down there, which doesn't hurt that one of them's the judge, one of them's, you know, just people like
Right,
that.
right.
They, everybody's for it, no one, so I've found the issues to be where opposition comes. And I've also found the issues with getting through proceedings like that is if you're, I'm gonna say unprepared, but really what we're doing by having Kylie do all the work they're doing is you wanna have the plan, you wanna have it built before you meet with them, basically. You wanna say, this is what we're gonna do, this is what the shutters are gonna look like, this is what that's gonna look like. That way, when anyone in the community stands up and says, well, the roof line, right, what's that? Yeah,
An answer.
right.
Yeah,
And also,
yeah,
as you have any, realistically though, what the process is, we'd apply for the variance for that, we'd apply for that. they'd have to notice everyone in the community at least, whatever the borough statute is, probably 30 days or at least 30 days. Then we'd have a meeting before we'd have a meeting before the zoning board, I guess, first. The zoning board, they would get their blessing or what corrections they want us to do to our plan. And then once we satisfied them, we would then have a meeting before the actual borough council and say, oh, we met with zoning, they're good with it. Now we have the community at large would come and say, whatever they thought about it. So I know it's a long-winded way to answer your question, but probably once the process starts, it'll be 60 days to get approval,
60 days?
probably.
So that seems very fast to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah, okay,
That's great.
but we're
That's
talking
good
about,
to
we're
know.
talking about building a house, a residence. We're not talking about building
Yeah,
the last thing I did
That's
was
great.
for a commercial business project.
Right.
So I mean, that was a little different,
yes.
a
yes.
different animal.
Yeah.
But it's the same general idea though. I mean, that's what people want to know.
So
you'd
they're
be- you'd be sur-
responsive, which is great. They're not slow.
Oh, no, the borough's very good. The
Great.
borough's very good.
Nice.
Plus, I happen to know the solicitor who lives out there and I'll egg his house, you know.
It's expensive.
And my brother works for him, so. But no, the borough, they've been great. Plus, like the mayor for Honesdale right now, Derek
Yeah,
Williams,
yeah, he's great. Yeah.
he's hand in hand with us in
Nice.
regards to what we're doing. He actually was kind of behind a lot of the idea when we bought the lot. Like, yeah, we'll do X, Y, and Z and everything. Yeah, so
Nice.
hopefully,
So I'm curious how you got involved.
how I
And how
involved,
it feeds you, yeah.
my dad's best friend, asked me to get involved. That's what happened. I moved home from law school, got a job. I don't know, we weren't married, definitely weren't married yet. But we were together and, yeah, he asked me to join, I joined the board and, yeah, it's kind of been a whirlwind ever since. So that's why I guess, and part of it is I primarily am a criminal defense attorney, but my mom and dad though, I work with my parents, they're both lawyers too. And, we do, all the legal work for Habitat, so all the real estate transactions, all that stuff. We do all that. So I guess we supply, or I guess I joined because I could do that. I guess that's somewhat why I started, and I don't know, I kind of like to build stuff. We built a chicken coop the other day. I just, I don't know, and I just find it's interesting, and the more, like anything, the more you get involved in something, the deeper you dive into it, you realize, what you're actually doing, who you're actually helping, and it's a great organization. I mean, I wouldn't be part of it if I didn't think it was a great organization with a good mission. I mean, there's some bad eggs, but I think that overall Habitat's mission is a novel one.
Well, and with saying that,
So why don't you get Tom in that picture too? Actually, it was Tom's
Tom's
dad,
dad.
it was Bud Rue, who was he not the driving force?
He was the first president.
Uh,
I don't think it's excessive to say that he was the founder of the Wayne County chapter.
In what year?
What year was it?
Well, he died in 1993, probably 92, 91 is when it started.
That sounds right.
Yeah, so he was a longtime teacher and anyway, so we're gonna present you with a check.
Well, we appreciate that.
So why don't you get in?
money was raised at the Bud Rue Memorial Walk.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Honor his dad.
Well, let me know when the date is.
It's in the fall. We don't have next year's.
All right, well,
You guys are gonna be on the list.
please let us know.
Yeah, because,
We'll definitely,
Sorry, it's not one of these big checks, but.
yeah.
that's all right.
We had one of those, we had one, and it's like, this big like piece of styrofoam.
Right, I know.
Like, what the hell am I supposed to do with
We'll
this?
do that.
Do it again, please.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I see little big numbers.
Cool.
Okay.
We appreciate you guys, some of your support so much. It's,
Thank you for what you do.
and it's really organizations like this that are the reason why I think we are able to help people as much as we can. And that's because if it weren't for the community at large, we wouldn't be able to.
No, and there's some really great things. I was gonna ask whether anybody from Habitat like participates with Wayne Tomorrow.
Oh, Wayne, there's so many foundations. I gotta think which one that.
Wayne Tomorrow
That's
is
the initiative and,
an initiative where they've been meeting once a month for 10 years. And they've got different committees, so they probably have a housing committee, they have agriculture, and they're really coming up with, they're really connecting a whole lot of stuff.
Housing Task Force?
They probably are. Ryan Jennings, the Wayne County Community
Community Foundation.
Foundation. I mean, anyway, there's really great things happening in Wayne county, so.
Yeah, one last thing on that note, we have one, board member named Mary Andrews, and she works with, NeighborWorks, that's an entity, another, type of building entity that we have in our area but there's so many different things like of that nature and resources out there. And that's part of why we want to get someone on to write more grants, to do that type of thing, because there's so much, and you really have to have someone who specializes in it to do it, someone who's a former grant writer would be very good at it, but it's, yeah, that's the next frontier, so hopefully we'll be able to build more houses on any of these systems, so.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, guys, we appreciate it so much.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having us.